I hate to say it, but what goes around comes around. After just over 2 years since the CCP allowed COVID to escape Wuhan and infect the entire world, it's ironic that now their very own zero COVID policy may be the cause of the collapse of the evil communist regime. W.H.O. and the Biden administration attempted to just slide 13 amendments through at the 75th World Health Assembly that would have given authoritative powers to Director-General Tedros, but fortunately, African delegates openly opposed these amendments. On one hand, Secretary of State Antony Blinken announced stronger economic relations with China, and then on the other hand, said the CCP has been aggressive since Xi Jinping came to power in 2012 and has damaged the United States' open society by spreading disinformation. Now, does this sound like a country we should be creating stronger economic relations with? Or is this an evil regime we should be decoupling from? Okay, my friends, let's take a closer look together.
Just the fact that we had an emergency meeting by top policymakers that included Premier Li Keqiang, that this was actually reported by state media. What are the signals that we're getting from this very much choreographed economy?
For them, the calculation is really who's in charge. You know, is it Xi Jinping or is it Li Keqiang? And all indications are that Xi is going to be around much longer than Li.
At the 2017 World Economic Forum, China's President Xi Jinping stood proudly on the stage by expressing how powerful their economy is. He said, "One should not select or bend rules as he sees fit." And now, on May 25th, the Chinese Prime Minister Li Keqiang, under the direction of the dictator Xi Jinping, held a massive meeting with 100,000 officials to warn them about their nose-diving economy that has never been witnessed for decades. Goldman Sachs lost faith in China's GDP, foreign companies are leaving, and China's central bank, holding an emergency meeting, is now giving a hint of global economic depression that no one wants to witness. And all of this is happening because of the zero COVID policy, which Xi Jinping still loves pursuing in his country. If we look at the ground report, some astonishing facts have come forward along with the teleconference of 100,000 officials, which proves how badly China's economy is hit by its insane lockdown measures. Li began the meeting by stating that employment, manufacturing, electricity, and cargo transportations are all showing a dramatic downward trend. Furthermore, he said, "The difficulties in some aspects, and to a certain degree, are even greater than in 2020 when the pandemic hit hard. The goal is not high and quite a distance away from the 5.5% growth target we raised at the year's start. But this is what we must do judging from reality. We're having this meeting today because there is no time to lose." As around 26 Chinese cities are undergoing some form of lockdown, Li did not wear a mask to express his announcement. Soon after the meeting, criticism from the experts started flooding from all angles. According to Gu Guangping, a retired professor from the Shanghai University of Engineering Science, factories can't work, commoners can't live their lives, and transportation can't function. This dynamic COVID-0 is pretty much an economic suicide. Experts also argue that after Xi Jinping came into power, he took most of the powers granted to the prime minister of the country. And when the situation becomes worse, Xi always uses the strategy of putting the prime minister forward to console the population, so that he could keep on continuing inhumane activities in the background. Well-known philanthropist George Soros, on the other hand, said the lockdowns and disastrous consequences, they have pushed the Chinese economy into a free fall. It started in March, and it will continue to gather momentum until Xi reverses course, which he will never do because he can't admit a mistake. Coming on top of the real estate crisis, the damage will be so great that it will affect the global economy. With the disruption of supply chains, global inflation is liable to turn into a global depression. Lastly, Stéphane Bancel, chief executive of leading vaccine maker Moderna, surprised everyone by stating, "I worry a lot about China, because I think as the virus becomes more and more infectious, it is less controllable with techniques that were wonderful in 2020 to prevent a lot of deaths."
We don't seek to block China from its role as a major power, nor to stop China, or any other country for that matter, from growing their economy or advancing the interests of their people.
With the constant efforts being made by the Republicans to make our economy independent from China's aggression, the Biden administration was strongly criticized after Secretary of State Antony Blinken recently announced stronger economic relations with China. The announcement was made at an event organized by the Asian Society at George Washington University. Surprisingly, Asia Society has a stronger relation with Ning Guangning, a leading member of the inhumane Chinese Communist Party, who is also a member of its board of trustees. While expressing future economic relations with China, Blinken shocked everyone when he said that the United States would not interfere with China's rise to great power status, but would seek to ensure that China's ruling communist regime adheres to international rules and norms that helped it achieve superpower status. We cannot rely on Beijing to change its trajectory. So we will shape the strategic environment around Beijing to advance our vision for an open, inclusive international system. Furthermore, he said that the United States will follow a strategy of invest, align, compete, in which it will invest in its allies, align with democratically minded partners, and seek to outcompete Beijing within the rules of international order. Now, it should be noted that Blinken issued all these statements by also accepting how China is taking every step to destroy the US economy. Because in the event, he openly expressed that China has become aggressive each day since the Chinese Communist Party leader Xi Jinping came to power in 2012. And the CCP is damaging the United States' open society by spreading disinformation and banning US platforms in their country like Twitter. Much to my surprise, he also praised former President Donald Trump by stating how President Joe Biden protected the US economy by continuing with tough policies imposed by Donald Trump on Chinese goods. However, despite knowing all of these significant facts, he said, "Our task is to prove once again that democracy can meet emerging challenges, create opportunity, and advance human dignity. The future belongs to those who believe in freedom." On the other hand, US defense and security experts strongly criticized these statements by arguing that this event has proved that the United States has failed to achieve its decade-old effort to protect its economy and citizens from China's aggression. They said, Blinken's speech on China essentially says decades of diplomatic and economic engagement with China have failed to keep the Communist Party from a path of aggression. Senator Tom Cotton also showed disappointment by stating, "We need to decouple our economy, its strategic and vital sectors, from the Chinese economy. We cannot be dependent on the goods that feed us and clothe us and provide us defense and literally save our lives from the communist Chinese regime that wants to replace us as the world's dominant power." If Biden were serious about China, we would decouple our supply lines onshore and kick the CCP out of our markets. Instead, we let them control us economically and saber-rattle wars we can't afford. I just want to quickly thank today's sponsor. Our sponsor for today's show is you. I want to thank you for donating your hard-earned money. It's greatly appreciated and contributing to the success of the show. And if you want to become a member on Locals and help contribute to the show, then click the link in the description and become a member and help me on my mission to deliver truthful news.
The past few years have opened our eyes. We've seen pain, suffering, and untold demise. Watched forests burn, air poisoned, and waters polluted. Had a sickness that left populations diluted.
The pandemic underscored the centrality of health. It laid bare inequities and widened gaps in wealth. We learned that health is not solely for social security, rather symbiotically linked to economic prosperity.
Because of COVID-19, the world is off track. At this rate, we're bound to fall further back. So let's stop and step away from our stagnation. Take a different route to a better destination.
After Biden getting heavily criticized for proposing to give authoritative powers to WHO that could soon take away the sovereignty of the United States itself, the recently held 75th World Health Assembly was packed with a suspicious number of eyes about how devastating it could be for the entire world if the proposed amendments gets approved. If we rewind back a little, President Biden in January 2022 proposed around 13 amendments to the regulation of WHO that would grant Tedros Adhanom, the Director-General of the WHO, unlimited powers to declare public health emergencies in any country without even consulting with the targeted country. And as the World Health Assembly, WHA, is the decision-making body of the WHO powers, the discussion of the meeting was entirely focused on whether Tedros Adhanom should be handed over these authoritative powers or not. However, before anyone could commit a serious mistake by approving these proposals, the African delegates at the Assembly openly opposed these amendments. To be more specific, the WHA's business is conducted mainly by two committees which consist of delegates from the 194 member countries, just like we appoint delegates in our government through elections. And the Biden proposals were being considered this week by the first committee, which was headed by Japanese delegate Hiroki Nakatani. So in order to approve or disapprove any proposal, it should first allow the delegates to comment or debate over the proposal for arriving at a reasonable decision. But if no debate or comments from the delegates happens at the meeting, then the proposals are considered approved. Thankfully, Moses Katayo, Deputy Permanent Secretary in Botswana Health Ministry, stated that the African region shares the view that the process should not be fast-tracked. On the other hand, Tedros, who was elected as the Director General of WHO with the support of China, decided to confuse the Assembly by submitting his report to the Assembly, which heavily stressed that the WHO should be given more powers to prepare in response to any health emergencies worldwide. Furthermore, he also requested all the member countries to submit their views or ideas on September 30th, 2022, about how these proposed amendments by Biden should be amended. Now, surprisingly, Lois Pace, who is the Assistant Secretary for Global Affairs at the United States Department of Health and Human Services, further supported handing over devastating powers to the WHO by stating, "We are also committed to an intergovernmental negotiating body process that engages external stakeholders and develops an international instrument on pandemics that enables meaningful, inclusive action." However, Representative Ralph Norman strongly criticized the amendments and argued, of course the amendments should be withdrawn. But the bigger issue is how we got to this point in the first place. Why is the administration apparently willing to cede any authority to an international body, particularly the WHO? Given the public outrage over this issue, you'd think we would be hearing directly from the White House concerning the status of these amendments, or at least our delegation to the World Health Assembly. It makes you wonder what's coming next.
Elon Musk now accusing Bill Gates of funding a smear campaign against him. Gates' foundation reportedly donated millions of dollars to several groups, hoping to push advertisers into boycotting Twitter once Musk takes the helm.
Elon Musk is like if you take Joe Rogan and Donald Trump and somehow combine all those chromosomes only as it applies to tweeting.
Yeah.
He's that guy now. He's got the snark down. You know why it works? It's pithy. It's not this long, rambling stuff you see on there. It's usually one punch, knockout.
If you were wondering why Elon Musk faced enormous pressure from all angles when he decided to buy Twitter, then you will be surprised to know how Bill Gates and other Democratic-backed organizations paid NGOs to cause the pressure behind the scenes. To be more specific, in early May, right after Musk proposed to buy Twitter, a group of 26 NGOs issued a public letter to the advertisers claiming that they will destroy Twitter's advertising revenue if Musk reinstates the censorship policy, like restoring the account of Trump after the purchase. They said, Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter will further toxify our information ecosystem and be a direct threat to public safety, especially among those already most vulnerable and marginalized. Under Musk's management, Twitter risks becoming a cesspool of misinformation, with your brand attached, polluting our information ecosystem in a time where trust in institutions and news media is already at an all-time low. After feeling suspicious about this threat, Musk asked his 94 million Twitter followers to trace back the sources from which these 26 NGOs received their funding. And when the Foundation for Freedom Online, FFO, investigated the public records to trace back the same, they were astonished to find enormous amounts of funding from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Also, out of 26 NGOs who stood against Musk, not one, but 11 of them were heavily paid by Bill Gates Foundation to write that letter. If we talk about the amount, FFO's investigation found that the Gates Foundation paid 102 separate cash grants through New Venture Fund, which brought the total amount to $457 million. The New Venture Fund has also received around $500 million from Gates Foundation since 2012. And one of the three groups who were leading the letter forward received around $1 million from billionaire financier George Soros. The letter contained the logos of Accountable Tech, Media Matters for America, and Ultraviolet Action. Accountable Tech's website showed that two leading members of its team, which are co-founders and digital director, worked for Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign. Media Matters for America, on the other hand, felt proud by describing itself as an organization with the purpose of providing tools to monitor conservative misinformation, which it defines as news or commentary that is accurate, reliable, or credible, and that forwards the conservative agenda. And Ultraviolet Action's board chair and board member, Karen Finney, had served as the senior spokesperson for Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign. When Musk heard about this investigation, he tweeted, "You think that's bad? Wait until you find out what he put in your vaccine." And at a recent Miami Tech conference, he confirmed that he would be voting for Republicans after feeling disappointed with the Democrats. With respects to Twitter, he said, "The $44 billion deal is not some right-wing takeover, but instead a moderate takeover and an attempt to ensure that the people of all political beliefs feel welcome on a digital town square and they can express their beliefs without fear of being banned or shadow banned." I'd like to thank you all for spending time with me. Now, don't forget, check out this video right up here. And if you want to support the channel by becoming a member on Locals, the link is in the description. That's it, my friends. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you next time.